Hello, my lovelies. Welcome back to Trapped by Love. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. If you're new here, hi, hello, welcome. My name is Emma Carrington, and if you're interested in true crime and justice, I hope that you consider hitting that subscribe button because we'd love to have you join us. If you're a returning viewer, thank you for being here and for your continued support of my channel. By way of disclaimer, we discuss cases of domestic abuse and domestic homicide on this channel, so if this is not the kind of content you were looking for, I completely understand. Thanks for stopping by. But if true crime is what you're here for, let's go ahead and get into this week's case. Today's case is that of Katrina Smith. Katrina was born on the 16th of July in 1982 in Elkhorn, Wisconsin. She was one of 3 children, and by all accounts, she was a fun and happy child. As she grew, she was described as someone who was full of joy, who was excited by life and by her career. Katrina married her husband Todd in 2005, taking on his 3 daughters as her own. Todd liked to portray to the world that he was the breadwinner and provider for the family, but the reality was that Katrina was the sole provider, looking after the 3 girls and her husband, a husband who was 15 years her senior. Todd was actually being sued in federal court by investors. He pled not guilty to defrauding clients out of $900,000, along with a number of charges of mail and wire fraud. Not exactly what Katrina had signed up for. So now, at the 7-year mark of their marriage, 30-year-old Katrina was angling for a divorce, and she'd been speaking with an attorney. So on October 22nd of 2012, Katrina went to the home she'd previously shared with Todd to advise him that their separation was permanent and that she wanted a divorce. While she was at the house, she used Todd's computer to send an email confirming details of an interview she had for the following day. She was up for a promotion and so excited about the interview. That night, Todd sent her a text message saying, "Sweet dreams, I love you." He didn't receive a reply, but didn't think too much of it. The following morning, he sent another message saying, "Good luck with your interview, you're going to be awesome." Again, he got no response. When he tried to call her at work later in the day and they said she'd not turned up for work or for her much anticipated interview, Todd called 911 to report his wife missing. So the Winnebago County Sheriff's Department listed Katrina as missing from the 22nd of October. When the police interviewed Todd, he told them that there were no problems in their marriage, that they just celebrated their 7th wedding anniversary, and that the only reason Katrina wasn't home the night before her big interview was that she was house sitting for a friend who was out of town. Todd spent his time appearing on any news media that would show his face, crying, suspiciously a lot of the time without tears, begging for any information, and thanking everyone for the help they were giving in searching for his wife. And search they did. Friends, family, and locals came out to search along with the police. Todd wasn't so involved in the searching. He sort of poked along, but wasn't as thorough in his search efforts as everyone else around him. I find Katrina Smith's Facebook page was set up to help get Katrina's face and information out there in the hopes that someone would know something and come forward. There was also a benefit held at her church, which raised money for the family. And in amongst it all, Todd was on the TV, pleading and thanking, making a total of 17 appearances. Not long into the search, on the 23rd in fact, the police got a report of an abandoned car, a blue Chevy Cruze, which was parked illegally. And I use the term parked loosely. It was found half off the road, partially in a ditch. The person who called it in advised that it had been unattended all day. And when police ran the plates, they found that the vehicle was registered to Katrina. Nearby, Katrina's purse was found, and there was also paper towel with what looked like blood collected from the scene. The car was taken for forensic testing, and the search for Katrina continued. Todd apparently called the police, accusing a detective of telling Katrina's family that there was blood found in her car. This baffled the lead detective because the car was still undergoing processing. no one knew anything at this point. Todd tried to explain this away by saying he must have read it somewhere online. This aroused some suspicions in the detectives, and as they looked closer at the couple's relationship, they were only more confused by the discrepancies they found between what friends and family were saying as opposed to what Todd was telling them. Friends and family advised the police that the reality was that Katrina had left Todd, that she'd moved out of their home more than 2 weeks before going missing and was having an affair with a co-worker by the name of Guy Gabriel. There were numerous texts between the two, even on the night of her disappearance. Along with this revelation, the police heard that Katrina felt that she was being stalked, followed, and watched in the months leading up to her disappearance. She'd even spoken with a phone carrier, trying to see if they could help work out who was behind the stalking. She'd gone to the extent of purchasing a firearm and was waiting on firearm owner's ID card so that she could go to the gun range for target practice. She was afraid and looking for any way possible to protect herself. The police were also told by colleagues of an incident 2 weeks before Katrina went missing, where a hooded man went through the car park of Katrina's work and distributed flyers on all the car windshields, exposing the affair between Guy and Katrina in extremely vulgar terms. Police spoke with Guy Gabriel and he was fully cooperative with them. He did have prior run-ins with the law involving domestic abuse though, so police were thorough in their inquiries. They were able to verify his alibi and he was cleared of any suspicion. So they took another closer look at the other man in Katrina's life, Todd, who was still all over the TV. But people were starting to talk. They thought his behaviour was odd. However, odd behaviour does not a murderer make. So the police dug into his past and what they found was shocking. According to court records, in 1985, when he was 17 years old, Todd Smith was sentenced to 30 months probation after being convicted of arson. This was for setting his family's McChesney Park home on fire, with his parents and brother inside. They narrowly escaped, but the home was destroyed. Todd Smith, whose name at the time was Todd C. Rappringer, told police that he did it because he was having problems with his parents. In 1992, he legally changed his name from Todd C. Rappringer to Todd Smith. Katrina and her family were completely unaware of this. These findings had the police getting a subpoena for Todd and a warrant for the home. They also sent the computer off for analysis. They subpoenaed all the news footage of Todd because at this point, they weren't finding him very convincing either. The computer forensic investigators were able to recover a number of files of interest, even though Todd had deleted everything from his computer. One file was named KS 10412, which related to a date that Katrina had with Guy. Another had the mock-up of the flyer that had been distributed at Katrina's work. And the third was labelled Super Track Stick. And this file contained all the information that had been captured by a GPS tracker. Investigators took another look at Katrina's car. While they didn't find a GPS tracker, they did find a wire under the car where it was evident that a device had previously been fitted. Katrina was right to feel that she was being watched and followed. Todd had been tracking his wife for 3 years. He was also the one who had distributed the flyers. This poor woman did not know her husband at all. The whole time that she was leaning on him for support while she was feeling uneasy about being stalked, he was the one doing it to her. The police looked over the tracking information and found that the last upload was in the early morning hours of the day Katrina went missing. This showed the tracker moving at a pace that was consistent with being on a vehicle to the area where police had located Katrina's car. However, it then slows down, registering a much slower pace as though it were on a person walking. On the 9th of November 2012, about 3 weeks after she went missing, a fireman who was fishing in the Rock River near Byron, Illinois, found Katrina's body. Her remains were identified by dental records due to the extent of the decomposition. Her death was determined to be murder. by blunt force trauma, and the forensic pathologist did note that the manner of death was asphyxiation. They believed it to be positional asphyxiation. In Katrina's car, the police found traces of her blood in the boot, on the steering wheel, and on the driver's seat, as well as in her purse that had notes from her meeting with the divorce lawyer, as well as on those bloodied paper towels. Todd went back to the house to retrieve some items with his daughter and a friend, and he asked his friend to go into the garage and get an aluminium baseball bat for him. When his friend returned empty-handed, both his friend and daughter say Todd was visibly upset. The police had already taken the bat and were processing it, having found traces of Katrina's blood on it. As police continued their investigation, they found that a neighbour had grainy surveillance footage showing a shadowy figure walking towards Todd and Katrina's home in the early hours of the 22nd. The police compared the timeline of the video footage with the GPS tracking information, and it lined up. With these two pieces of technology, they had captured Todd walking home after dumping his wife's car after the murder. On November 24th, 2012, Todd was charged with first-degree murder, aggravated battery, aggravated domestic battery, and concealment of a homicidal death. The evidence showed that Katrina was struck in excess of 20 times with the baseball bat, with at least 7 of these blows being to her head. These injuries were not initially fatal. It seems that in moving Katrina, Todd put her unconscious body in a position which caused the asphyxiation, which ultimately killed her. Todd continued to claim his innocence until the last day in court, when he said, "I'm sorry for failing in my role as husband and protector." In closing arguments, the prosecution said the defendant wrote an epitaph for Katrina. He wrote, "You are my wife, you will be my wife, you will die my wife." I don't care how good your relationship is. She had a life outside of you, dude. This isn't all about you. So, for those who don't know, because I didn't, the meaning of epitaph is an inscription on or at a tomb or grave in memory of the one buried there. So, wow. On April 4, 2017, Todd was sentenced to 59 years in prison. According to the investigators, after Todd had battered Katrina to death with the baseball bat, that's when he sent her the message saying, "Sweet dreams, I love you," which, when you think about it, is just despicable. The mental capacity for deception and the complete lack of care is astounding. Beyond that, what I can't get my head around is why he synced the GPS that night. Was his compulsion that intense? Like, to know where she'd been and what she'd been doing, his compulsion was so great that he couldn't just discard the device without downloading those last couple of days' data. I mean, in the end, I'm pleased he did it. It was his undoing, but you got to wonder what's going on in someone's head. Katrina's mum, Vicky, spoke of how betrayed she felt by the man she considered family. "Certain people," she said, "including my family, felt you had everything to do with the disappearance of Katrina, but I kept telling everyone there was no way you'd hurt Katrina. I feel so bad for this poor mum." She goes on to say, "All you had to do was walk away and let Katrina live the life she deserved. But out of greed and jealousy and rage, you chose to take her precious life." Which is so to the point. Like, get over yourself. Walk away. This person doesn't belong to you. Let her go. Katrina's loved ones don't want her death to define her, though. Her mum, Vicky, also left Todd with a quote to remember in prison. She said, "Death leaves a heartache no one can heal, but love leaves memories that not even you can steal." As devastating as this case is, that quote is amazing, and I hope that Katrina's family can hold on to all the wonderful memories that they have of her. The Mirror in the UK wrote, "Todd loses his freedom because he refused to let his wife have hers." And that sums it up. That is the truth of so many of these cases. Domestic abuse results from entitlement and one person's belief that they have the right to control and possess another. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this case, so let me know in the comments box below what you think, or use the hashtag #TrappedByLove over on social media so I can follow along. Thank you so much if you've made it this far. You are amazing. And please consider subscribing and hit that like button. It does really help me out. Or you can always check out another episode. If the content of this case has raised any concerns for you regarding your own relationship or that of a loved one, please reach out for help. There is help available. There is a list of resources listed in the show notes and the description box below. My aim in covering these cases is to honour the victims of these crimes and to get their stories out there in the hopes of warning others who may face similar situations. So in saying that, I mean absolutely no disrespect to any of the victims or their loved ones. The hope is that the more people who recognise the red flags and warning signs of abusive relationships, the less prevalent these cases will be in the future. Knowledge is power, and we need to know what to be on the lookout for so we can protect ourselves and each other. I thank you again for joining me this week, and until next time, please take care of yourselves and be kind to one another. Bye.